Hi there guys, welcome back to another video on Rancor Reptiles, and today I'm coming at you with a Herp talk. If you like these talks, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, maybe even suggesting the next topic we should discuss. And today we're going to be talking about the EXPOs. EXPOs are basically locally organized or sometimes even nationally organized events where people are able to go and vend and sell animals, merchandise, anything of the sort in relation to basically exotic animals, reptiles, amphibians, arachnids, you name it. If it's not a mammal, or if even if it is, maybe if you live in a state where the sale of maybe hedgehogs and ferrets are allowed, more exotic mammals, if their sale is allowed, maybe they'll even be allowed into one of these expos. However, for the most part, reptile expos focus mostly around reptiles, amphibians, sometimes arachnids. Expos are a love-hate relationship in the community. Some people love them, some people hate them. So let's talk about it. So today I'm going to be talking about 3 good points and 3 bad points about expos. Now, of course, you can have different opinions. You can leave them down in the comments down below and we can have a civil discussion. However, right off the bat, I'll let you know where I stand. I personally like expos. There are a few serious things that need to be addressed in expos. However, expos for the most part, I believe, are cool and beneficial to the community. So I'll go with number 1. The first good thing about expos is that it is basically a community-based event. Most of the time, the vendors that do show up are local. They're in the state, and if they're out of state, they're close. They're within driving distance. Of course, there are larger breeders that sometimes do ship animals in. However, for the most part, they are the vast minority. For the most part, if someone's vending at your local reptile expo, they're most likely a local somewhere in the state. I live in California, so we have several super shows. We have Anaheim, Pasadena, Fresno, Stockton, Sacramento. We have a lot of shows here in California, and almost every single person I've met at those expos are from California. A rare is the time I see somebody from out of state that had to ship their animals in. Right, the logistics of it is extremely difficult. So this is a mostly local community event. Here you're able to connect with people. If there's certain breeders in a certain project or certain animals you want to get into, this is the best place where you can talk to them. A lot of time these breeders are excited. They get goosebumps talking about what they're working on because this is in reality a hobby for most people. And as most people that share hobbies, we are pretty damn passionate about talking about it. If someone came to me and they wanted to know what's up with my viper geckos, I would be trembling, singing their praises to the viper geckos, and want to let them know everything I know, so the conversations can get long and you can really spot out the people that are passionate about their animals fairly easily, and how they communicate with the people talking to them, right? Sometimes they're not even customers. Maybe they're just there to window shop. However, an opportunity to talk about something you really can't talk about with other people is awesome. If you're trying to get into the same project, maybe a ball python project, or maybe you're looking to get into the same animal this breeder is producing, this is a great way to make connections. Let's say if you get a really rare lizard from Australia and there's very little information out on the internet about it, this breeder that produced that animal is a gold mine of information. Maybe you can get their card and talk with him if anything happens. Talk about what type of humidity and temperature they'll need. Of course, you'll want to already have all of this research done for the most part. However, this is a person that is able to have the animal thrive and breed. So they might have different care methods, right? Maybe they run the temperature a little hotter on the hot spot and a little cooler on the ambient. Maybe they have a little higher humidity for certain months, and then they drop the humidity slightly during the summer months. They're a gold mine of information. So even if it's just great to connect with people. This is a community-based event where basically these expos help us galvanize with each other, know that we're not alone, and that there are a lot of other people out there that love reptiles, right? So next up is cheaper stuff, cheaper animals, cheaper feeders, cheaper equipment. Expos provide a level of competition that for all vendors that are attending. So if one vendor is selling, I don't know, a certain enclosure for $100, maybe another person is encouraged to maybe undercut and sell it for $90 or $80, right? It's one of those things where competition with your neighbor is, it is what's going on. So if you find a certain animal that you really want in one place and you find it at another place, it might be a little cheaper. Maybe you really like that animal in the other table, you can go back and say, hey, there's another guy selling this animal at a cheaper price. I really like this animal and I really like your business. Are you willing to price match? And usually there's some wiggle room for negotiation, right? Feeders are also cheaper if you have lots of snakes. Maybe if you have lots of lizards and stuff like that, you can buy your prey items in bulk at these expos, and that really does cut down on the cost. If you don't have a connection with a local breeder of your prey items, this is the next best thing. Expos offer feeders at a reduced price, and it's great to stock up at this point. Next up is basically if you are a breeder, and let's say you are vending at one of these places, or maybe you're not vending and you're just there to window shop and see what's going on, you can really size up your competition. Like I said, these are all local, most of them are local people to the surrounding area. So that means, let's say if you're a ball python breeder, you walk in and there is every morph except for one. Maybe no one has bamboo. Maybe no one has a particular morph. They're not offering it. It's completely absent. You're able to produce that gene and sell it to the area. There will probably be more interest in your area because that particular gene isn't there. Maybe you really want to get into a certain species of animal and you're worried about whether or not it will sell. If you show up to your expo and there's no one really selling it, maybe a vendor here or there, you'll know that the demand, that there might be demand there. However, there's really no supply. So you're able to maybe, instead of, if you're shy about shipping out your animals across the country, maybe you're able to sell more locally. Of course, eventually the area will get saturated. However, it's a great way to get started on any breeding projects. So you can really size up the competition, see what's available at what prices, really see what's going on in the area. So if you're planning to breed for profit or just planning to get into some certain animals and you want to know what their availability is like in the area, the expos are great ways to get some good information on it. Now, on to some of the negatives. The first negative is one of the, it's really subjective, and that is putting stress on the animals during these shows. Animals, I would argue that the animals are really in no big stress, because realistically, let's say a reptile expo is for 2 days, and maybe the reptile or animal will probably be in these enclosures that they're in, or in these crates they're in for around 2 days. 2, maybe 3 with transportation back to wherever the person's keeping these animals, right? Realistically, 3 days is not that much, right? If you have a nice, healthy, well-fed, well-managed animal, 3 days of being, I will admit that these expo displays are fairly small. However, of course, most people will probably take them out of the displays and put them into bins for just to give them a little more space. That's what I would do. And they're only under this type of stress for around 3 days. Obviously, they're not fed sometimes because they don't want them to poop. With snakes, that's not a big issue. However, with smaller lizards and geckos, they might need to be fed during these 3 days to make sure that they're keeping up their condition. Sometimes they'll be too stressed to eat, so you got to make sure that you keep an eye on that if you are selling. However, I think that the stress accumulated during these 3 days is really no big deal. It's only 3 days, and if the breeder or the vendor's only attending one expo a year, then that probably means that these animals probably will only undergo that stress once every year. So it's not a lot of big accumulated stress on the animal. Nothing permanent. The animal might be skittish for a week after the animal gets back home. However, it's really no big deal, right? I've bought a couple animals from expos, and all of them have been perfectly fine. They've actually even started eating the next day. So it really depends on the nurture before the expo happens, right? So if someone brings newborn animals onto an expo just days after they were born, that's a recipe for disaster. I would probably stay away from that particular vendor. The next two arguments against expos are very real, concrete, and there are certain ways to minimize these risks. First one would be transfer of disease. Now, there are several types of diseases that affect reptiles, amphibians, and arachnids separately, and these expos are great hotspots to contract some of these diseases. Now, you want to be sure that you have hand sanitizer on the table that people are able to use before they hold your animal. Simply because if they're carrying fungal or different types of viruses on their hands, the alcohol will at least minimize some of that. Of course, the whole hand washing would, for them to get their hands washed before they touch your animals would be best. However, realistically, that's not going to happen. So if someone, let's say, has mites and they don't know they have mites, and they go to an expo and they infect their neighbors, and then they infect people's hands that touch their animals, and then they infect the people's other animals that those people touch. For the most part, people are very good about keeping their animals clean, only showing up when they have nice, healthy animals. However, sometimes people just don't know, right? People don't know they have mites. Maybe they have a very light infestation. They really can't see anything. They take their animals to an expo, and then it spreads. All right, so you as the vendor need to be very careful, and you got to be sure that all the animals that you do take to an expo at least have a little bit of period of quarantine, so you can see if they carried anything back or not, right? That would be the safest bet. Next would be the biggest gripe I have, and that would be selling to the under-equipped. Expos are great, like I said before, because they offer animals at a cheaper prices, and because of that, some people that don't know how to take care of animals end up getting animals, right? If I go out and I see, let's say, a dragon snake, and I'm like, wow, that animal looks really cool, I want it. I think there was one particular expo I went to where they were selling a dragon snake, and I think they were selling it for $200. Now, that is scarily cheap, obviously because it's an import. However, that was a very cheap dragon snake. Now that I've done more research on it, that is most likely dead now, because someone sees it, oh, that's cool. I asked the person, what does it eat? What's the temperature? Because I knew nothing about this animal when I saw it. It looked absolutely amazing, and it looked cool. It looked different. They said, oh, it's a frog eater. Keep it cool. That was about it. That's about all they knew. So that person probably ended up selling that animal off. That animal probably has passed away. Maybe it's still alive. However, statistically, I don't think so. And so this happens over and over again. Someone sees a nice little boa. How much is it? It's this much. They don't know they're getting a reticulated python. Oh, that looks like a really cool lizard. How much is it? It's this much. They end up getting a black throat monitor. Oh, that's a really nice tortoise. How much is it? They end up getting a cicada tortoise. You know, they don't know. They're not properly equipped with information. They're not properly equipped with equipment. They're not properly equipped. Obviously, you can make a suitable enclosure, impromptu enclosure, within a day. However, to have a really nice established enclosure where all the parameters are down pat, that takes a while to make. Maybe a couple days, maybe a week of constant monitoring the temperatures, making sure that they're correct, humidity is being retained at a certain point, knowing how often and what to do to replenish humidity to get at that range. To have the proper information on the animal, the husbandry, the eating habits, its typical behavior. This is all preparation. This is all equipment, both physical and mental, that people just don't have when they go to these expos and they buy these animals that look cool, and they just buy them for the sake of buying them. These animals aren't purses. This is not a cat. This is not a dog. These animals require finessing of their enclosure to make sure that everything is properly attended to. Chameleons are, unfortunately, they're put into glass aquariums. People don't know they need really good airflow. People don't know they also need really good humidity. People don't know that they need moving water. You need a dripper or something like that. People don't know. They end up buying these animals, and the people really don't suffer. They lose some cash, so what? However, this animal is a slow burn until they crash and pass away. My biggest gripe with expos is just selling to the under-equipped. Biggest gripe. That's my biggest problem. If you are going to go to an expo and you need to have in your mind what you're going to buy, right? If I go to an expo, I'm looking to buy some mourning geckos. I have a new tank set up. I want some mourning geckos. I have another tank, fairly easy to set up. I want to get some desert geckos, maybe viper geckos, stropharis. The enclosure I have is perfect for that, easy to set up. I'm going to buy a rainbow boa. I already have the tub or the proper equipment for it. I already know what's going on, what I need to do. Things like that. If you're well prepared to go to an expo and you have an idea what you're going to buy or an animal you're going to buy, and you know some background information on them, that's perfectly fine. If you watch these videos and you're like, oh man, I just went to an expo and I found a Dampier Peninsula monitor. I have some basic knowledge because you watch my videos. Ha ha ha. The enclosure size is not too big. Hotspot, it's not a problem. I can buy that equipment here at the expo. And I can probably buy this animal impromptu and offer it sufficient care until I have its optimum set up, right? So enough of me ranting about that. So 3 cons, 3 pros. Make up your own minds. Leave a comment down below on what you think. This has been a fairly lengthy video. I try to make them a little shorter, however I tend to talk, right? So leave a like, subscribe if you like it. Go down below and maybe even leave a comment on what you want the next Herp talk to be on. I really do like talking, as you can see by the amount of time this video is going on. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for coming by and watching me out. Thanks, guys.